randos fashion, we're recording right now. So, all right. Let's see. What's my name? I haven't been on one of these in a while. My name is Jeff. I am joined by two people that whoever watches this channel, if there's anybody left, will probably know, I would assume. Cassidy, no offense, Ferdy, but you're probably the most famous because
most likely.
because
that one video wasn't hit.
Sorry, say that again.
That one video wasn't hit.
Yeah. Well, Cassidy, you have your own podcast. There's a catalog that people can check. It's the Information Addict, right? Yep. And then for now.
Yeah.
And then Ferdy, your claim to fame is you've been on a very long conversation with me on this same channel.
Yeah.
Where I don't know if I've told anybody this before, or at least I don't know if I've shared this out on YouTube, but I had just finished watching either some, I know I had watched a documentary, or I'd also watched like the Tom Hanks movie on Mr. Rogers, where it talked about how Mr. Rogers would just like kind of use silence to try and let conversations go where they needed to go. So I was actually trying to practice that in our conversation, Ferdy. So we were just kind of both sitting there staring at each other, not saying anything.
I think you probably talked even more than I did.
Oh, okay.
But that's because Ferdy's a man of like silence. He'll say something and just no need for added words. And I'm like, can you expand, please?
We need to ask.
Well, if anybody is interested in seeing that on full display, you can look at the back catalog of the Randos United channel. I can't remember what we called that conversation, but it's out there somewhere. If you dig around enough, you'll be able to find it.
Probably already like 2 years ago.
Yeah, something like that. So yeah, but that's not why we're here.
Yeah, longer, probably 3.
That was a little bit of background, but I guess what I'm most interested in, and what, you know, I want to let anybody who's interested in watching this, the 2 or 3 people who might watch this know, is let's see, you two, I mean, it's really about how you two met and where that led to. So I guess one of the places that I would like to start is with the Bridges of Meaning Discord server, which I think all 3 of us were pretty much there from the beginning, right? From when it first launched, pretty close. I know that a few select people were kind of brought on as kind of initial testers of it. And then Paul Vanderklay shared the fact that it had been created on his channel one day, and then shared a link, and that's when a lot of the first, you know, early adopters started joining. And Ferdy, I think I remember you being there from the beginning, like from the moment people started joining. I think I remember seeing you in there. And very early on, Job started doing an audio only. I think he was just doing a conversation in one of the channels inside of the Discord server. It wasn't even being recorded, but it was kind of a precursor to his, I won't say short-lived podcast, but it's one that, you know, hasn't been very active, where it was just called Bridges of Meaning. And he would just talk to anybody who wanted to kind of share their story that either maybe couldn't get a slot on Paul's channel, or else didn't feel comfortable going out on YouTube, but kind of felt a little more comfortable with audio only and a podcast going out. And some of the early folks on there were, you know, people who probably won't even be recognized to anyone who's on the Bridges of Meaning server these days, like Andreas. Ferdy, you were one of the early ones. Runaway Rascal, is that the name that Taylor goes by? Those were a few of the early folks. And Ferdy, I know you were on there, and I really wanted to revisit mine and your conversation, because there's so much about your story that I've already forgotten. So anyway, the point to all that is, you guys were both early, and Cassidy, you know, your story is out there too, and kind of how you ended up on the Bridges of Meaning server, and people can go back and find that if they really want to. But I think what I'm most interested in is because I remember those early days when people were first jumping in. You know, I was working at a job, and most of the activity was like right smack in the middle of my work hours. And so I had Discord pulled up on one screen, and the way that I was set up in my office was like traffic would always just like pass right behind me, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, I wonder if anybody's going to wonder, you know, what I'm doing on here. But I also wanted to keep up with all the conversations and what was going on, and meeting and talking to all of the people who, you know, had either been on Paul's channel or people who had been in the comments, and just kind of meeting and learning about those folks. And so that was just really an exciting time. And so the place where I want to get to is, if anybody still doesn't know what's going on, I'm just going to announce for you guys that Ferdy and Cassidy got married recently. And unless there is something that I am completely oblivious to, the place where you guys met was on the Bridges of Meaning Discord server, correct?
Yes.
Now, you are not the only couple to have formed from meeting on the Bridges of Meaning Discord server. I happen to know of you and 2 others for a fact, but there's probably more than that, either that are known to others and just not me, or just completely unknown.
I know, yeah, I know 4.
Okay.
Two of which have gotten married, and one that I'm not certain about.
Okay.
But there might be more. I don't know.
Yeah, there might be more. Yeah, and I only know about 3 of those. I know about the 2 that got married, one of which we're talking to right now, or I'm talking to right now. And I think what I'm most interested in is, first and foremost, if you guys could kind of both tell from your perspective, and whoever wants to go first, that's fine. But just when you first noticed the other one, and then I don't know. I don't know. I'm just kind of interested in that stuff. Like, I'll start with you, Cassidy. Like, when did you first notice Ferdy, and when do you remember you first interacting with him, and kind of what that was like, what the tone of that conversation was? Maybe not necessarily like in direct messages, but just the first time in general chat, and if there's anything that stood out to you.
Yeah. So, I mean, the first time I noticed Ferdy, I can't say that for sure, but I'd known he had been around for a long time. Like, I had known of him, but we hadn't really interacted much. So it was probably, is it 2 years into the Discord before we, or no, probably a year into the Discord before we had first like interactions where I could remember, oh yeah, I remember talking to him there. Although I do remember back in the summer before we like started a friendship, we did the video for Voth of like
yes,
sort of a tribute, because he had died. He's one of the members who had died on the server. And so I was in charge of taking all those videos and editing it together to kind of make this tribute. And so I had all these people sending me videos. And when I saw Ferdy's video, the first thing I went was like, oh my gosh, Ferdy's so attractive. I did not expect that. That was that. I wasn't like, oh, I was pining after him, but it was just like, oh, good for you, Ferdy. You're good looking. And then I moved on, and that was that. But we started becoming friends maybe 6 months later. And honestly, it was because it was like after the Friday Q&A, things would happen. And he was always in the chats late night with Bill, Ginger Bill. And I knew Ginger Bill really well, but I didn't know Ferdy. So I went in to kind of, talk to Ginger Bill. And during that time, it was more normal hours for me to be on. And so the 3 of us kind of would get into conversations. And that happened for a couple weeks. And then there was one evening, it was the day before Halloween, 2020. Yeah, 2020.
Yeah.
And it was one of those after Q&A things. I had been in the conversation for a couple hours, and then I left to go to a little like trunk or treat thing with my family. And when I came back, Verity and Bill were still in the chat, and I was like, what are you guys doing in there? So I went back to kind of scold them for being up still, and kind of kept talking with them. And Bill eventually left, but there was still other people in the chat, but we just stayed in the open chat, and we just kept talking. And he talked all the way till the morning. For me, I went to bed at a late hour, but reasonable. It's like, for me anyways, I'm a night owl, so it's like 1 a.m. or whatever. But yeah, for a while we just were alone in the chat, just talking back and forth. And it wasn't anything like, it's very just platonic, but it was just a good flow. And I think for me, that one was like, oh no, I don't like this. I had some, well, there was like a lot of reasons. I always say Faraday for me was a list of never ever agains. You know, no online, no distance, no people undecided about what religion they're a part of. And so it's like, oh my gosh, I'm attracted to this guy, but I think that's a very bad idea. But you know, it was that little bug that was in my head. So that's where I first met him, and there's more to how it progressed from that, but I don't know, I'll let you kind of answer the question.
Yeah, I want to interrupt for just a second, Faraday. I don't want to mess up what you were going to say, but what I'm also interested in, you know, so Cassie, you talked about the first time that you actually noticed Faraday, and you know, you knew he had been around and everything, but it was like, you know, when that video compilation was put together, you put a face with a name. So, you know, I remember Cassidy, like the first time I knew who you were, it was before I had even talked to Paul, because I was just watching Paul's channel, right? And then, you know, so that was the first time I was aware of who you were, and that was before there was a Bridges of Meaning server. So I'm curious, Faraday, was the first time that you noticed or knew who Cassidy was on Bridges of Meaning, or had you been watching Paul's channel?
I watched Paul's channel, so I knew her from that. And I still remember the video it was, because he was talking about like the Jordan Peterson was like a cult thing.
That's a little harsh. I didn't know that.
So yeah, no, that was the first time, and I was like, so judgmental. And then, you know,
And nothing's changed about how you feel.
I wasn't meaning to be judgmental. I was trying to be funny, but
yeah. Yeah, so that was the first time I knew of her. So then I like always, like when she was like on the Discord, like I knew the person from the videos, and that always like was with a few, like with you, Luke, you know, a couple others, like you already knew them from the videos, which makes it easier to talk to in some ways. Probably weirder for the other way around. Like you don't know the people, but they know you in a way. But yeah, so that was the first glimpse that I got of her, really. And then eventually on the Discord, like, well, the FOF video, of course, like that was one of the things, but otherwise not that much. I think also with the time zones itself. And that the night, really.
And you guys are in the Netherlands, just for everyone. You're Faraday, you're from the Netherlands, and Cassidy, you're from the United States, like I am. But you're from Arizona, right?
Yeah. But so we both sort of kind of started having a friendship at the same time, and I don't know what it was about our schedules or whatever, but all of a sudden, and I think probably we just became more active as COVID kind of.
Yeah, COVID was probably a big factor as well.
So you didn't answer the question though. When did you first notice me?
Well, that was on Paul's channel for the video.
But I think he's asking more than just like, oh, there
When did you first notice that you were interested in Cassidy? Was it the video?
No, the first time that I thought she looked cute was that night, and she was getting this pumpkin shirt on for the trunk or treat, and she was showing it off, and I was like, oh, that was probably the first time I thought she was cute. And then
before that, he didn't even recognize I was a woman. He was just like, oh, she's a thing.
Yeah. But my brain doesn't work that well by like noticing if I'm into somebody in a way. So for me, it really only started when she asked me for like a private conversation. And I was like, suddenly like, wait, did I say something in the last few weeks she wants to elaborate on? Because you talk about all sort of topics. Or is this like a sort of like romantic sort of conversation that's going to happen? And I was like, well, I don't know. But that's the moment my motor started like running like from, wait, what? And how should I act? Like what I'm doing? Like,
yeah, well, and I think I think we both had some sort of attraction then, because like, I don't think we would have stayed that long chatting with each other if there wasn't something. I just recognized it faster.
I am attracted to Ginger Bill, so that's
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
You defeated Ginger Bill, Cassidy.
Yeah, although he's still
Right.
he still lingers behind. I know
Oh,
that.
you gotta stay on your toes.
Yeah. If there's anybody to worry about, it's Ginger Bill. He bakes better than I do. It's a problem. But like, I think for me, after that first conversation, it was sort of that week of like, okay, I recognize what's going on, but I don't want anything to do with that. That was my mindset. I don't want anything to do with that. But there was like still that thing in my mind of like, well, it's there, and I couldn't sort of shake it. And my birthday was like a week later. And I had mentioned it for some reason in a stream because I had to like leave. And he gave me a birthday gift. I was like, you don't know me that well to give me a birthday gift. Like, it doesn't mean that he likes me, but like, it's at least a piece of evidence I can hold on to. And so that's when, after that happened, I ended up in a like public chat, but it was just the ladies of the Discord. It was Sally, Joe, Andrea, Sherry, and myself. And they started talking about like attraction on the internet and like, you know, whatever, and like being in Discord with a lot of guys. And so then I was like, okay, guys, I think Freddie likes me, and like, he's very cute, I kind of like him, but that can't happen, I can't do that. And just going on and on about how like, no. And I finished my monologue and Sherry goes, why not? And so that sort of planted, I think, another seed of like, you know, well, yeah, why am I being so like negative about this? So for me, it was like, okay, I just need to like, and I had thought a lot about like settling down at that point, because I had done a lot of like being single for a long time and building my career for a long time. It was sort of like, I think I'm ready for something different. I don't want to stop doing the things that I did before necessarily, but like I think I do want to get married. I think it's important for me to get married, more than just wanting to get married. And like, I had to take that seriously. But I knew that I couldn't do that where I was if I didn't like clear the deck of whatever this weird thing was. And I didn't want to wait around 3-6 months trying to like have this friendship and like figure out what it was. I'm like, I'm just going to ask him for a private conversation. I'm going to have it out, and we can just like move on, or we can, you know, figure out what it is. So I just asked him for a conversation, and that, I think that's when he started thinking about it more. He probably didn't recognize whether he liked me or not, but he got a sense of it in like a higher level, and just like, oh, we're having conversations on the internet in a platonic way.
yeah, pretty much.
So, Freddie, I don't know if you have anything else to say to that, but I'll ask a question if you don't.
Well, you know, that was the moment like it started turning more like consciously. And then, you know, I'm just terrible at those things. Like I've been on dates without knowing they were dates.
Multiple times.
You know, so it's like from like, and then you're like at that point you're just more like thinking like from, well, it's probably nothing. It's probably nothing. It's probably nothing. Well, yeah. You know, and then you go into the conversation, and then you first have like a little bit of like small talk, and you're like, oh, when's the question coming, right? There's got to be a question for this conversation. And I was like,
Okay, but no, you have to tell what you did. So I was not explicit that this was a date. I just went like, oh, I'm gonna have a conversation. I was very like loose about it because I didn't want to like be, but I was gonna be direct when it came down to it. It's like, listen, this I'm feeling, I don't know if you're feeling the same. Let's have a conversation. But he was streaming The Chosen every week on Discord. So we would watch it and then we would talk about it. And there was like a group that would come.
me and Andrea.
Come and I came, started coming and other people. So, but yeah, sometimes it was just you and Andrea with your popcorn. Andrea, not Andrea. And so we decided to have our conversation after the Chosen stream was like done. So we watch a stream and we're sitting and we're talking with the group for a while and we're just letting it go. And so as it's sort of wrapping up, he goes, okay, guys, I gotta go. I have a date. And they're like, okay, bye. And I'm like sitting here like, I know that I'm having a conversation with you, so he must think it's a date, right? He still claims that he did not think it was a date. He was just, that's just something you say.
like it's a bit the trickster in me and a little bit of coaching, like what it might be. Like,
That's a bold move though. If I was just like, oh no, I want to talk to you about I don't know, the Trinity or whatever,
it would have been fine. Like you don't think that far when you do a trick.
But anyway, so that was sort of the leading up to the conversation.
Yeah. Just a little bit of small talk and then the question came. Poof.
What was the question? Was it just what you were saying, Cassidy, that, hey, here's what's going on with me?
No, but because he was like, oh, I got a date, I was kind of like, okay, we're on the same page here. So I kind of just asked him, so how are you feeling about us like talking? And he got my drift.
Well, yeah, that can we always mean one thing anyway.
And yeah, and that led to like a long conversation, kind of talking like really practically about like, what that means and sort of the fears and the objectives. And during that time in the Discord, there was a lot of talk about marriage and the point of marriage and, whatever. And you and Ginger Bill were talking a lot about it too, like sort of it like.
Yeah, we were planning.
Well, that's funny too. Before either of us were interested in each other, Ginger Bill, I think, asked me like something about my perspective on kids, and like because he said a lot of his female friends are so anti-kids and anti-marriage and whatever. And I had said something to the effect of like, well, I think I would be more open and like eager to the idea of having kids if I found the right person. Like if I found a person I trusted to have kids with. And Faraday goes, well, Cassidy, there's the Discord. And he was totally joking, and I'm like, no, never. Joke's on me.
Yeah.
But no, and because I think for both of us there was like some uncertainty, and for me there was a lot of uncertainty because I was at the point where I had stopped calling myself a Protestant, but was looking into Orthodoxy and was pretty sure I was going to convert, but I wasn't a catechumen or anything. And I was really wrestling with the idea of what that means for myself, like in the frame of marriage, because it really, the way that I saw it, it really narrowed me, and like I couldn't just marry anybody I wanted. It's like, well, I probably have to marry somebody Orthodox, the very least Christian. And he was at the place where he was like a theist, and really interested in Christianity, particularly the Orthodox expression of Christianity, but wasn't sold on the idea of Jesus, didn't believe in him in like the fuller sense of like what it would mean to call himself a Christian. And so it's like, well, to enter this thing, like there's this path where it's like, well, we can't feel confident in moving towards marriage. Like we can try our best to see if our paths align there, but there's like a really like dividing fence that makes it hard to build a life together if nothing changes. And so that was a lot to think about. But harder for me than you in some ways.
Yeah, I didn't have that border, you know. Like for me, that didn't need to exist in a sense. So that makes it for me like especially in the beginning, I guess, like I didn't notice that border at all. And then eventually later down the line, you know, the conversation pops up and then it's like, okay, what are we gonna do with this? And then it becomes like a real thing. But before that, for me, it was like
not an issue.
Yeah, not at all.
But I think you recognized why it was more necessary for me. Like in your situation, it wasn't as necessary, but me being in that place where I was moving and narrowing, I think you recognized like, well, yeah, like it wasn't like that's ridiculous. But yeah. But we had a couple.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. I was just going to ask if you knew, or if there's, how did you come to resolve? You were probably going there with this, but how did you reach a point where you felt, you know, good about that, Cassidy?
Well, we had a couple conversations kind of back and forth before we officially like decided to jump in and, you know, be in a relationship and, you know, just asking questions. And I think ultimately it was sort of a gut decision in so many ways where it was like, on paper, Faraday should have been an immediate no. I shouldn't. Like he's a great person, a great guy, but like for myself and my situations, like everything that I had been taught before, the way that I had been taught to pursue relationships, the way that sort of the evangelical Protestant path that would lead to successful marriage, it would have been better to like walk away. Yet there was something in me that was like, you know, whether it leads to marriage or not, I think you do need to be a part of this relationship. I think you need to do it wisely, but like there was all of these things that he presented that I had seen before, and I had seen the negative side of that story. And like the spirit in which he had and the way that he operated, it like flipped things on its head, where it was like all of a sudden him not, you know, being decided on religion wasn't as much of a problem because there wasn't so much of a what's the word, like a complacency or an antagonism against it. It was like just an earnestness, which for me was very helpful because I had almost gotten married when I was younger. I had been engaged and it broke off for a lot of reasons. But after that broke off, I kept moving in my faith and my ex walked away from it. And so that was this terrifying thing of like, wow, like if we had gotten married, I don't think we would have gotten divorced, but I think that shift in him would have happened. And now I'm stuck in a marriage where, you know, I had this one thing that we said we built the whole relationship on, and like he's left it. And that was like terrifying to me. And it was hard too, because I was the one at the break of our relationship, I was the one doubting my faith and he was very solid in it. And so when that split happened, it was like, wow, I don't even know how to trust when people say they believe in God anymore. And so there became this sort of pattern where someone was honest in their, you know, skepticism, or honest in their, you know, uncertainty of a faith tradition. I was like, well, at least they're being honest. At least, you know, there's something on there. And yeah, I said it quite often when we were dating, but I still believe it to be true that at the time when we first started dating, I think we were believing in the same God. We just had different conceptual confidence in it, but we were pursuing the same like larger thing. And I just had this trust that, well, if we move in the steps where we can, which a relationship for me at that time was a step that I felt that I could enter, but it wasn't the promise that I could enter a marriage. And so it's like, well, there's only so much I can go down this path with you, but I'm willing to take that step and see if maybe we can learn from each other in this like pursuit of what feels like the same thing. And yeah, that's why I ultimately took the leap. But yeah, it had its ups and downs, especially with my family. It was really hard to explain. Okay, so I'm dating a guy. I met him on the internet. He lives in the Netherlands. Oh, and he's not a Christian. It's like, what are you doing? Yeah.
Yeah, you hit on a lot of the questions that I had, Cassidy. So yeah, I was interested in your answer. Whenever you had mentioned like your ex-fiance and the foundation of the relationship and how you felt like one of you was on that foundation and the other one wasn't. That was my question about you and you and Feri's relationship and what you felt like that foundation was. And it seems like that was part of the resolution. It's just like, wow, we're not saying the same words or saying the same thing about this foundation, but it seems like to you, Cassidy, the intuition was that you were meaning the same thing.
Yeah, well, in a lot of ways, we would say the same things, or we'd find agreement in these things. Yeah, I had more of a confidence in Jesus and my commitment to him. And he was like, well, Jesus is really great. You see, he seems really high on the top of the mountain, but I don't know if he's the top. And I'm not, I don't think it's responsible for me to put my allegiance to him without thinking clearly about what that means and being sure about it.
Mm-hmm.
And it became even more crucial when we started dating because he didn't want to be the guy who said he was a Christian so that he could marry me. And I didn't want him to be that. And I didn't want to be the girl who pestered him about his faith to get him to be a Christian so that I could marry him. I like really respected the fact that he was like moving through that earnestly and like wrestling through that. And I don't think the idea of Jesus and the Christian concept is an easy one to swallow. Like I'm not that kind of person where it's like, well, it's obvious. It's obvious to me now. But even when I was a Christian, there were times where it wasn't so obvious, yet there was a trust in the thing that came. And so yeah, and like I look at my past relationship and my ex, and I think, well, I don't think he was lying to me when he said he was a Christian, and he's a Christian again now. And so like, it's like, I don't think he was lying to me. I don't think it was like a deception, but I think there was something about that. When your world gets shook, it reveals kind of the roots. Mm-hmm. And yeah, for whatever reason, like my roots kept me on the path and his took him away for a while. And, I don't know the particularities of that journey or fully where he is now, but that's where it's like, I guess I got that fear of like, even a guy who, cause I went to evangelical churches for a long time before I became Orthodox. And there were a lot of great guys who profess their faith, but there's always that fear of like, well, when the storm comes, like, is it, how well have you tested that? How well have you kind of shaken that? Because I did a lot of shaking with my faith, like really trying to like not lose it, but
test it.
Yeah, like weed it out, and because I wanted to reject it if it was something worth rejecting. And I didn't come to that position. I came to a position of even more religious in a sense. But yeah, I mean, I think, there was just something about the spirit in which he pursued the question of religion that was very securing to me, but was very hard to explain to those around me.
And so you, Cassidy, with your journey, moved into the Orthodox Church, right? And you two were married in the Orthodox Church. Now, I, like you, Cassidy, I grew up in, conservative evangelicalism. And so I know a lot about what you mean, when you talk about making sure that you're with somebody who is on the same path. The biblical speak is equally yoked.
Yeah.
Yep. Very, very big, goes around a lot in evangelical singles groups. That term gets thrown around a lot, and you're told that's what needs to happen. And so I am curious, because I don't know a lot about Orthodoxy. I only know what I've heard through the people who have moved from evangelicalism, or just broader Christianity in general into it. Most of the people I know on the Discord who have done that. And so I'm just curious how that fits in with where Faraday is Faraday. How does one get married in the Orthodox Church? Because I'm assuming, and maybe I'm wrong, Faraday, but have you converted to Orthodoxy, or how does all of that work, I guess?
Well, I'm catechumen at this point, so
Okay.
I'm not like fully.
He's not a full ortho bro, but he's
Yeah.
ortho bro. Yeah. He's working on the beard.
Yeah, just to like. But no, I don't know. For me, the journey was quite a long time. Like probably already it happened when we were talking 3 years ago, right? Like there was already that sense of searching for something or looking out for something in a way. And I guess I mentioned the book Laura's back then as well. Like I was kind of searching for that magic in the world again, that feeling of like there's like this enchantment everywhere. And like I guess the moment we started meeting, I was already like on a good path upwards in many fields in my life. I was like getting settled, I was getting a job, I was buying a house, like everything was like going like in the ways you kind of wanted to go. And the faith itself, I was just staying curious. Like in the beginning, it was a little bit more global and like in different terms of like stories and myths and those things. But eventually, Christianity became a bigger part of it. It's already like weird that the one that isn't a Christian is streaming the Chosen on the Discord in a way.
Right.
So and then I remember Ginger Bill started that you started to do the Bible study, like through the whole Bible, even though he never showed up. But I joined that as well, and then so like you just like you get more involved in the stories. But for me, it was very organic. Like I just kept paying attention to it and weeded out the things that I felt like were not the case to be, and let the flower grow till the point that I was like, okay, I can't deny he is at the top, in a way.
And that was really refreshing for me to see, because I came from this sort of like truth first Christian world where we gotta like keep striving and looking for God. And so for me, it's like I'm like kicking and screaming, moving across the current, trying to like refine what it is to know God. And he's like chilling in the river, letting it take him wherever he wants. There was this sort of like beauty and wonder in it. That I had lost through deconstruction and like trying to make sense of the world in my head. And like I had started seeing it come alive again through Orthodoxy. But like through him, it like even lightened that even more.
Well, for me, it was sort of effortless. Like it's not like you didn't need to put time into it. But
is that frustrating, Cassidy?
No,
like it's so much effort for you, and it's just so it's just effortless for you.
No, it was like there was something sort of like joyful to it, where it softened me. It was actually really healing for me, because it used to be very effortless for me in religion and following God and like pursuit of that. It used to be like it was still like a truth first, but it was like a trust, and like I saw the beauty, I saw the good, and like there wasn't as much skepticism in it. And then I went through the skeptical period, which it's very difficult but I wouldn't take it away. Like it was very meaningful to me. It was very helpful to me. But then I kind of hit the end of that when I found Orthodoxy and was like, okay, I'm settled. And, starting to see pieces of the wonder again, but there was still sort of that like, well, I got to figure it out. I got to learn, I got to test, I got to prod. And then, seeing him and the way that he saw it and the wonder that he had, it was like, it enchanted my world, where I started seeing the life and the magic in it too, and like the beauty of it. And so, no, I'm very grateful for it, because it's that reminder for me to like, it doesn't have to be this hard.
Yeah, and I don't know why, like often things are effortless, right? Like you get gripped by something and you pursue it, but then after like for example, I did like a lot of the personality tests like years ago, like to figure out like what's going on with me in a way, like why can't I put myself to something? And then you can be maybe interested for a couple months, you research it all, you learn about it, it's very interesting, but then eventually it loses its grip, and it's not really working on the long term. You might take 2 or 3 things out of it that were like useful still to this day, but otherwise it's like and that never happened with Christianity. Like even now still, like every time, like in the car to work, normally I listen to a podcast, so that's like 2-hour drive a day at least, and I'm like listening to podcasts around like Christianity. And that's not because like I feel like I need to, but it's really like I'm curious.
You're interested.
Yeah. And so for me, it was always sort of effortless in that way. But then, of course, we got the struggle of like, okay, so what you're going to do? And then it's like suddenly becomes more real, right? Because before, like you're kind of floating around, you're making some photos here and there, and you're like, oh, ooh, look, that's beautiful. But then suddenly it's like you don't want to pretend it's beautiful for somebody else. But it's very easy to mislead yourself in that way. Like it's very easy to truly believe you're not doing it for somebody else, while in the same way you are changing the things you're saying or thinking for somebody else. Because for me, that always like would have felt like basically the Adam and Eve story. Like I would take the apple and I will take a bite from something I should not yet, and then by that I would not only curse myself but also curse her. And it would probably be the devil of the relationship that we have, because I would be a fake person having a relationship with a real person. And, so there will be no relationship in a way. So that was like something to struggle with. At the same time, also, like you would get more ferocious in a way. So you put a bit more time in it. You get pushed a little bit more to, take a few steps that you might have withhold off a little bit because you're sort of like afraid, or like you're not sure you're ready yet, like you all the excuses you can get really. And some of them might have been true, like you might need to wait a little bit longer for some things, but eventually you kind of have to do stuff.
Well, I put a certain pressure on myself too, because I was in this weird transition where it's like, well, I think I'm going to become Orthodox, but I'm still in that place where I need to I wanted to make sure, like, I didn't want to just jump into something without thinking it through, without really participating and understanding what that meant. But I knew that as soon as I took the step of becoming a catechumen and entering the faith, that really narrowed our relationship even more. And so that was that pressure of like, well, I don't want to put so much pressure on that. And I don't want to, well, and a lot of it was like, well, I want to enter with him too. I don't want it to just be me charging along, and making my path and asking him to catch up. Like I wanted to work with someone towards something. And
there are 1,000 entry points.
Yeah.
And all of them have like something different to show.
Yeah.
So it's never catching up really.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that sort of dynamic, it almost ended us. We almost broke up before we had actually even met in person. because there was just that lot of pressure and the, I think for me, it was the spinning of my wheels of how to not force something, not pressure something, but also communicate the seriousness of what that means. And like during that time, he said something to me, because I was really struggling with like, when do I become a catechumen to become Orthodox? And he was like, Cassidy, you're more Orthodox than you want to admit. You should become a catechumen. And I was like, yeah, you're probably right. And so that I became a catechumen and kind of worked through that path. And yeah, we eventually decided, no, let's keep doing this. Like, but that was that hard part where it's like to be with him. 28 at the time. Or was I 29?
Beginning 29 or 28.
Yeah, so it was like, I'm not old, but like I'm definitely getting older. And, for a woman in Christian communities, generally get married very young, and men who are my age or a little older, they generally marry people in their mid-20s. And so you hit 30 and it's not like the end of the world, but it definitely limits your options. And so being in this relationship, moving towards this, it put a hold. If it fell apart, it didn't work, it wasn't the right thing, it put a hold on that process of like what it is to like find someone. And I didn't want that to be like a factor and why I made a decision. And I wanted to have like more sovereignty in God, but there was definitely some of that factor of like, I don't want to be the girl who puts 5 years into a relationship for it to go nowhere. And then the time that you need to heal from that. I can't afford that anymore. I'm not 20. Just, so that was, yeah, that was hard, but he made it easier in a lot of ways because he was always very understanding. And like, there was this earnestness and this seriousness that he took things, that wasn't antagonistic, that wasn't ever impatient. And it helped me a lot because I'm not a very patient person.
Even now, she would almost blow up at me for this conversation.
For what conversation?
Yes. You were like, are you really You're getting into the shower now?
I did not almost blow up at you. I did say, hey, Jeff is going to be here.
I was late. It's okay. I am interested in there was one particular thing that you said in there, Ferdy, where you drew kind of the parallel or a little bit of the example from the Adam and Eve and how you felt like, you would be a fake person going into this relationship with a real person. Was there a point in time that you can think about where you feel like there was actually a shift there for you?
Well, I remember that pretty clearly in some ways. Like the shift was probably already present before me noticing it. But then, the problem is you're gonna hold the brake longer as well because you don't want to let it go too soon, because that would be devastating as well. Mm-hmm. And then eventually we were just talking about it and she was here in the Netherlands.
Yeah, it was so we dated for 8 months without ever meeting each other because of COVID. The restrictions were so that neither of us could travel to each other's countries. And, we schemed about, maybe we go to a different country, we meet somewhere else, but it worked out that I could come here and visit him. And so on that trip, we're having conversations. I don't know.
And I've just been going to the Orthodox Church for a couple of weeks then, and that was like COVID time. It was a small Greek Orthodox church, so the whole liturgy was in Greek, and there was like no coffee time or anything. So it was just like you come in and you get out. So I would not talk to anybody. I would just be there, not understanding a word they were saying. But the church was just beautiful. And then the first time I came there, like I also got like an email with an invitation in Greek. And I just saw like a time in there, and I was like, okay, good. Like at the time, I know that I'm like welcome, so let's go. And then like I would go there, but like I would be early. Like nobody was there yet except one other person. It was dark. The candles were only burning, no lights otherwise, and there was just the hymns going. But that was like probably the best thing I could have done, because I was just standing there listening to it, getting like into all the icons around.
Well, and there's something very different about an Orthodox church versus an evangelical church, where it is very participatory, and it's not necessarily about understanding exactly what everything is being said, although it helps. But like there's something about the liturgy and the way that they move and the icons that are supposed to draw you into like the sacred space. And so it's much easier, like in his situation, where even if he doesn't know the language, to like participate and get something from that than say like a Protestant church.
I think it even helped because I could not focus on the words. Well, before that, it's on the Discord, you're talking to people, you're reading about it, you're like listening to podcasts about it. So you have all these like knowledge sort of ways of like getting Christianity into you in a way. And then that's only gone. Like you can only do it for like by taking notice of what's going around you with the music and the icons and the movements. So yeah, I was just going like about like a couple weeks before.
I think a couple months. I think it was longer than you think.
Yeah, I don't remember that exactly. But yeah, and then we were like talking here about it, and we're talking about me and the faith in a way, and then it was the next day.
Well, no, we were talking and I kind of stopped and was like, you remember that thing you said to me about orthodoxy? How I was more orthodox than I would admit? And he was like, yes.
I already knew what was going.
I think you're more Christian than you want to admit. And he kind of just like settled with it and thought about it and didn't say anything about it. And then the next day we're sitting in Utrecht having a coffee. He's like, okay, I think you're right. I'm like,
is that where the famous photo came from? Where there's like it's a picture of you, Cassidy, sitting at a table, but the big thing was what was going on in the background.
No, there was someone else.
Same day, but
Same day.
from patio to patio.
That lady's face.
Yeah, but that was the first time he said, like, admitted, oh, I'm a Christian. And then that was game changer for us, because it was like, okay, well then like it became real. Like it wasn't that it wasn't already real, but it's like, okay, this thing we were hoping for, this thing we were hoping that we would be moving to, but didn't know if it was actually possible. That barrier had been removed, and it's like, okay, well, let's figure out how to do that. So 6 months later, I moved to the Netherlands and started living here.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, 3 months later, we got engaged, and I went back to the US, planned our wedding, came back here, and then yeah, we got married in October, about a week before the first time we talked 2 years earlier.
Yeah.
So you mentioned early on in your relationship, Cassidy, that you obviously had like these barriers or these things. Obviously you had this checklist where you were like, he's a no on that, he's a no on that, he's a no on that. But it seemed like the biggest one was that, that thing that gets trained into evangelical Christians of it's gotta be the same foundation. It's gotta be the same foundation. Now, what I'm hearing is that was still there, but you guys were able to reach a point where there was a place where you came together on that. I'm curious. So I heard how that resolved with you, and how you two were able to move forward through that and grow into that. How, Cassidy, because again, I've grown up in similar circles as you, how has that journey been and that resolution been from your family side? Because I'm going to make the assumption, Ferdy, that from your family side, just as you didn't really feel like that was an issue, I would assume that your family probably didn't feel like that was an issue either.
No.
And to contrast that, Cassidy, I am sure, just based on my own experience, that there are people in your family who that was a really big hurdle for. So say as much as you feel comfortable saying, but I'm just curious how that dynamic played out from your family's side.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a bit of a tension. And I had dated the people who weren't Christians before, one guy previously. And then I had, had conversations and feelings for people who were like atheist, agnostic, sort of things. And so for my family, this became this like pattern where I'm trying to fix people. And it, like, it really wasn't that.
Missionary dating.
Yes, well, and I wanted to really avoid that because I didn't want that to be like, I thought that was very ingenuous of me to like come into a relationship to try to like manipulate them into being Christian. Like, I certainly feel that there's like a call for me where, like, I did agree that it was like, I don't think I feel morally right about marrying somebody if there isn't that like shared foundation. But like for me, there was something else of like being willing to say, well, really like having grown up evangelical and leaving Protestantism and moving into Orthodoxy, it was like, well, I went through a journey myself. So how can I fault somebody for doing the same thing? But coming from the opposite side, I can't. And like I saw this way of like traveling together to move towards that, to get clarity on that, more than some of my family did. So for a while, it was sort of like, the conversations happened first at the beginning, particularly with my sisters, when I first kind of mentioned it, and I'm like, oh, Cassie, what are you doing? Like, this is stupid. And it was all coming from, I recognized that it was all coming from a place of concern, a place of like loving me. And so it was never offensive to me, but it was sort of difficult in like trying to express it. And luckily, I didn't get very defensive about it, which was, I think, very helpful. Where it was like, if they brought it up, I would talk about it and I would say my piece, but it wasn't a fight, which is sometimes not my mode of being. I can sometimes get very feisty and very argumentative. But with him, I think I just had a certain piece about it where it didn't become that. But there was some dinners where we had sit downs and it was, all the biblical things I had been taught, my whole life growing up. And I didn't disagree with all of the things they said, but I think I saw things in just a bigger frame. And so there was a lot of skepticism. And then when he became a Christian, when he like told me that, I didn't immediately tell my family because I didn't want it to be like, well, he's a Christian now, see, like, I just didn't want it. Like, I felt like if I was too upfront about it, they wouldn't believe me. But then when they did start asking about it and he says, no, he's a Christian, then there became the skepticism of like, well, why didn't you tell us? Is he really a Christian? And so there was first the, is this a good thing to be doing? Is this wise? And then when he became a Christian, did he just become a Christian because he wants to marry you, you're a very nice girl, whatever, or so they say. I mean, I'm still not saying that. But I think there was still that sort of uncertainty and skepticism until they met him. And I think that changed the game because it's like, I think they could really, in some ways, see the thing that I saw by interacting with him. And I think they just saw the ways that he loved me, particularly in some of my harder moments. And that for them softened this sort of like idea. But yeah, I mean, it was a bit of a struggle.
Well, I had your grandma on my side instantly, so that helps.
Yeah. Well, my grandma is not a Christian, or well, I don't know. I don't think she would identify as a Christian. She was more involved in New Age things. I think she has somewhat of an okay view of Jesus, but I wouldn't fully know what her position is. But she's much more liberal in a lot of different facets, and particularly relationships. So because Ferdy was kind and smart and funny and loving and caring for me, it didn't, you know, that was easy for him. And, you know, my dad was actually much more sort of on board with you than I would expect from him. And he's very protective, but he got to know Ferdy through Zoom calls. We would do Zoom calls with my grandma and him kind of on a weekly basis. And so he got some exposure from him there. And so once he met him in person, that I think helped settle some things, at least settled them enough to say, okay, well, I'm not so worried about my daughter flying across an ocean to go, you know, live near this person. But yeah, so I think there was a varying views of skepticism. I think there's probably still extended family who are very skeptical. There are some who are very, very happy with Ferdy. They just love him. But I think there are some that are sort of skeptical. I think pretty skeptical that I'm Orthodox.
They don't
really say it to me. And that was another fight too, of like orthodoxy with my family. They have softened now. But yeah, that was like when I told them, oh, I'm gonna get chrismated, you know, and invited them to it, that's when the questions really started. And sort of that like, wait, what is this? And again, all from this sort of loving place where they don't want me to get involved in something that is not healthy for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, the hard part was like, but you're against this thing that you don't know or understand. Like they'll admit it, like, we don't know orthodoxy, but this is why it's wrong. And I'm like, that's fine. And I try not to be defensive about that either. I think for me, there is a piece about orthodoxy that allows me to do that in a way that I haven't felt with other expressions of spirituality that I've like found myself in, which makes it somewhat easier, but it's still hard because I care very greatly about my family and the people that are closest to me, and particularly because I think they're wise and I think they have a lot to offer, and I think they have a lot of truth in what they say. But I tend to, although I still kind of lean more towards the conservative end of things, I tend to be more liberal than other members of my family, and so that adds a bit of wildness that, you know, they've got to like get their minds around. How is it for you though?
Yeah, what does your family think of Cassidy, Ferdy?
Yeah, they're fine with it.
But I mean,
I'm like, she's fine. Go
Yeah.
about your business.
but I mean, how is it for you to be in that position where, you know, there was skepticism of you?
It was not too difficult though. Like it was understandable for the skepticism to be there. And then at the same time, it's like, well, you know, if there are questions, you can just ask. You know, I think you kind of know, like, things will be revealed eventually. And you want to incorporate everybody into your relationship, like especially family and friends. But you also know that you don't have the control over it. It's not like, you know, you can just give them candy and, you know, they're all on board. It's like, well, no, you just got to show what the relationship is and who you are, and then hope they will come on board. And I don't know, I like every time like I heard like maybe like a possible skepticism or something, I was like, oh, you know, it's often not even talking about me in a way. So then it's like, you know, it's like I could defend the points they were making, but it was like, that's not even, they're not really talking about me. They're talking about this sort of fictional person.
Yeah, this idea of what Ferdy was, given the facts that they had on a piece of paper, which we all do, right? Like we jump to these conclusions, and I don't know, Ferdy, I always say Ferdy kind of like broke all my categories and rewrote all my narratives, where like the stories that I saw the way they ended, the things that had happened in my past, he had this way of like flipping them upside down and like making them whole and showing me like the true story of like the beauty of what it could be. And he just made it easier too, because I would say, oh, my family said this and they're worried about that. And he was like, well, Cassidy, if they weren't worried about that, I'd be concerned. You know, like they should be worried, you know, that you met a guy on the internet. Like there's a lot of creeps on the internet. There should be worried, you know, about these things. Like that's not an unreasonable thing. And, you know, I recognize that too. And yeah, but I think the fear of the unknown was the worst part, just because like they couldn't meet him. Like they did some Zoom calls, but like they couldn't meet him in person. They couldn't have dinner with him because we couldn't get to a place to have dinner.
Right. That was probably one of the hardest things, that like the whole COVID situation. Like thankfully, like probably because of COVID, we are together. But at the same time, it was also like this really big struggle when it was like withholding us from each other, like to be able to visit.
Yeah, the travel bans, like for anybody who is like separated from a loved one, the travel bans were so much more frustrating than for anybody else. And you're constantly looking at the news thinking, okay, what has changed? What has changed? And you hear, oh, there's supposed to be an announcement coming, and it never comes. And then there's an announcement coming and you hope it's gonna make things easier, but it's just extending the restrictions. And yeah, it really made us lose control of the path in which we were going. And I don't know, I think it all sort of played out as it should. Gave us the time to like figure out these things. And I mean, we because of it, we had so many deep, meaningful conversations that it felt like, you know, we dated for 3 months, but it felt like we had dated for a year, because we had done all of the, you know, we had talked about all of the important things and gone through the important things, because we weren't distracted by, you know, going out and, you know.
The only thing you can do is talk. There's no phone in your hand, no television watching. Like it's, you know, the only thing you can do is talk. And I still, like nowadays, I'm like, how did we even do that? Like, you know, hours of talking on a day. It's like, what did we even talk about? Yeah.
We filled it though.
Yeah, now like after 2 minutes, I'm like, oh.
Oh no.
Yeah, we got a long road ahead of us.
Thankfully, we're already old, so
Yeah.
shorter to the bit.
Yeah, we're over the hell.
It's almost bedtime there, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was trying to think if there was anything else. I mean, you were answering I didn't have to ask any questions that I had in my mind. You guys were hitting on all of them, so I appreciate you.
We get a lot of these questions. It's like, how did you get me? The internet. Oh, Tinder.
Not exactly.
Close enough.
Yeah, and just like, you know, the question, how does that work? You know, but a lot of people are more kind of like in awe by it than sort of like off-put by it.
I think it's also like people know it nowadays, that people meet through the internet.
It's become more common.
Yeah, it's not as uncommon as it was, you know, 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, it's just funny to like Bridges of Meaning has this, I don't know, it has that weird, especially the early rendition of it. I mean, I know there's been a lot of cycles and ups and downs with Bridges of Meaning, but that early sort of group, that it's something like I've never experienced before, but that, you know, relationships have come out of it, the marriages have come out of it, the babies have come out of it. Like, it's wild to me. And it wasn't the mission, right? I was not on there to find a husband. I was on there to pal around on the internet, talk about philosophy, religion, and like, you know, meet interesting people.
I would have no clue why I really clicked that link to join.
You love stories.
Yeah, that's probably it. Like, but I don't know.
Yeah, but that sort of relationship is calm. I don't know. There's something kind of beautiful about it, and I mean, it's certainly not the path for everybody, and it shouldn't be the path for everybody. But I'm very grateful for what it led me. It's like it's completely uprooted my life and like flipped it around in some of the best ways possible. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it's still the same.
He said, for me, it's still the same.
He's like, I've been here all along. It's been this way this whole time. What's that meme? Always has been.
Yeah, always has been.
Although I think your life is very much the same, but it's totally different.
Oh yeah. Well, that's like some of the things you also notice, right? Like you're like from like now in this conversation, at one point I was like, I really have no clue what I would have been really thinking or like in a way about all these things 2 years ago. Like, would I have been okay? Would it have been like completely different? Like it's so difficult to really go back already like 2 to 3 years to imagine like what you were like in some ways or how you thought about some things. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
there's quite a difference in there as well. Like a lot of things are still the same, but also
Like 4 or 5 years ago, I wasn't sure if I'd even get married. Like that was that wrestling of like, is that even a path that I should take? And so, you know, we talk about it all the time. It's like we met at the right time for it to work. If we had met at any other times in our lives, we'd not have been together. It would not have worked. But we met at this like perfect intersection in our lives where it became healthy to be together and a part of each other's lives. And because we like accepted that path, it ultimately led to one that, you know, hopefully lasts forever.
not forever. 30 years.
Are you gonna explain that, Joe?
No, I don't even know how to explain that one.
It's rolling 30. A rolling 30 years we're together.
Ah,
Yeah. Well, it's also like what we've been talking about nowadays. Sometimes it's like people talk about like age to get married. Like, you know, you should be younger when you get married in a way. And sure, there are like some benefits, like being younger married. But it's also like if you look back, like it's also like you need to be ready for marriage. And I didn't get prepared at all for marriage till like probably then the 3 years ago that it started to become something more salient, something more to aim for. It's probably already like 5 years now, by the way. It's a long time ago.
Whereas I kind of grew up in this place where it was like I was always preparing for marriage, but I should never date or think about boys until I'm 18. And then when I turn 18, anyone I possibly date, like I should be ready to marry them immediately. You know, and it was just that was wild. And then, you know, I almost got married young. And then when that broke down, like I had to reconfigure my whole like world and like my perspective on religion. And then kind of once I got to a healthier place with that, it started making me rethink about the idea of marriage and what that looks like. And yeah, and I think for me, there's so much talk about like, get married, have kids, it's good for our society, you know, it's going to help the political landscape. And it's like, okay, fine. I'm not minimizing the benefits of marriage and like the beauty of marriage. And I think that's a good thing to promote. But before we can do that, it's like, well, how do we get people prepared for marriage and the understanding of what that means for them? Like, I think the focus should be more on, the creating a culture where we can have children who are ready for marriage, then marriage in and of itself, creating that culture. I don't think that's how it works.
Yeah, why is marriage so beautiful?
Yes. And that's for me, I think, where I really started reframing and like finding the beauty of marriage. Because for a while, marriage to me, I wanted to be married, but there was something sort of there's something about love and romance that felt immature to me, because growing up, you had all of these girls swooning over rom-coms and Valentine's Day cards and things that felt superficial to me. And so I kind of got jaded on the idea of what marriage was and like the beauty of it. But the more that I kind of took the time to gain curiosity about the religious frame and what it really meant to be married, and starting to see marriage as this sort of icon of what it is to be well, an icon of God, but then it teaching you also what it means to be more fully human. The story became much more beautiful. And I don't know, I'm always sort of sad that that's not more of the topic than just strictly get married, have kids, you have so many benefits. And, you know, here are the negative benefits of, you know, casual sex or what have you, you know.
Yeah, one is a kind of more like almost preparing them to wed. The other, like, there's also need to get ready to be married.
Mm-hmm.
Because we are still marrying, like it's not like over yet, but we are wed, that's over.
Yeah, well, and that's something in the Orthodox Church, or priest was telling us, they don't actually perform marriages, they just crown them. So in that sense, marriage is happening before you walk down that aisle and sign that contract. It's this idea of two people putting their lives together, becoming one, and understanding what that means, you know, in a spiritual sense. And so, yes, we've walked down the aisle, we got married, but in our minds, it's like, well, we'll continue to marry our whole lives, and like whether we reach that point of oneness or not, like who knows? But like, yeah. It's certainly a goal to aim for. And there's probably going to be in times in life we're more one than others, you know, like we're more in sync, we're more fully one than others, but that's part of the journey, and that like sort of crucible of what marriage is to kind of purify and make you a better person. Oh, and I remembered you did ask what was the qualifications for an Orthodox marriage, and we did not answer that question. But so to have an Orthodox marriage, at least one partner has to be Orthodox. I'm Orthodox. And then the other partner has to be a baptized Christian. And so he was baptized Lutheran, identified as a Christian, we could get married. But he is working to become Orthodox.
Well, they're working on me.
Yeah, they're working on me.
I was going to ask if that's effortless, Ferdy.
It's quite effortless. Like I have outside of maybe getting out of bed on a Sunday morning, for example, it's like, you know, I have no issue going there. I enjoy it. I love talking with the people we have met so far at the church. You know, that's for me is like, you know, a nice place to be. And I hope it stays that way for a long, long time.
Do they talk to you only in Greek, or what language are they speaking?
No, we went, eventually we moved to another church. Like the Greek one was also very useful because it was like next to my parents' house. So that would be like, you know, that was like a 5-minute walk from their place. But now we found one that does a Dutch liturgy as well. And it's like, there's like a lot of new young people coming in now as well. So we have this quite a nice group of people that are like all exploring this together.
All who know Paul, they're like,
Jay Dyer,
yeah.
a few, like, so like people come like the different ways in. So it's kind of like that nice mix of like people you have to explore with, but also already people who have been there for a long time.
And it's a Russian tradition, and I was brought into the church in a Russian church. So for me, the melodies are very similar, which is very, it's very nice. And it helps ground me in the liturgy, where in the Greek liturgy, it was beautiful, but I felt lost because there was nothing to ground me, because I don't speak Greek. And I'm learning Dutch, but I'm not fluent in it. So that helps too, where it's like, okay, remember, understand some of the words, and now it's not 2 foreign languages being, you know, spoken to me, but just one.
Yeah.
And so it ended up being a good place to plant. And yeah, there's so many lovely people there. And
Yeah. Well, and we have like a nice mix. We have like Greeks, Russians, Coptics, like different traditions coming together as well.
yeah, it's very much sort of like a Dutch Orthodox church, even though that's not quite a thing, but you know, it's that,
Soon.
yeah, it's that sort of,
You'll make it a thing.
yeah.
Colonized.
But I think it reflects much more of like the Dutch culture and the diversity that is there than particularly like some of these more ethnically focused communities.
Yeah, so that's been a good fit for us.
Yeah.
And it's only 40 minutes drive, so it's not too far. Like at the same time, I kind of wish like we had a church like in the hometown.
Yeah.
Because you sort of notice like the little things, like, you know, either going by on a Wednesday evening because you know somebody needs some help or something. Like it's like suddenly like 40 minutes drive, like after work, that's only a long time, because then you would get 9 o'clock in the evening and then you would get home possibly 11. So
Yeah.
like those are like the little things, or like, you know, you go like to town on a Friday and be like, oh, you want to come over? Like we have some coffee.
And it's hard because there's a lot of, there's a lot of Orthodox churches in the Netherlands, surprisingly, more than I thought there would be. But because it's, you know, it's not as prominent as other denominations, you have a lot of commuters. So even if we did live in the area that the church was in, there's still a lot of people who they live all over the place. And so luckily we're kind of the center of the country. So it's like not crazy far from too many people, but it has its struggles. And I think for us, just recognize the importance of community and that like religious participation. It makes it sort of difficult, but we manage.
I was going to ask you guys how far you live from Job.
We're like 30 minutes.
Yeah, 40
minutes. 40 minutes, yeah.
About the same. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's always fun. We've had lunch a couple times with Job, and we met a lot of the Dutchies now. A lot of them went to the German festival, and so getting to meet them in person, and we had a big group come with us to the church. Joe, Peter, Dennis, Boss and Sarah, but they go to the church.
Yeah.
But
to church as well. That
was kind of fun to and a lot of them, I think for all of them, it was their first time being in an Orthodox service. So that was kind of fun. But yeah, it's kind of lovely. I think for me, I'm very grateful for the international aspect of Bridges of Meaning in these online communities where you can connect with people you'd never be able to before. But there's also a real downside to that, and the loss of human connection and like grounding things in reality. And so having so many Dutchies who have been a part of the community who we can meet in person and hopefully establish more of like a pattern of meeting with them and living life with them. I'm really excited for that kind of opportunity.
And you guys got married, Cassidy, at your church that you were going to in Arizona, right?
Yeah.
And there were some people who you had met on the Discord that were able to come to that wedding.
Yeah. Well, it was the perfect sample size of Discordians, because we
realized that a little bit later. We had like a perfect combination.
Yeah, we had a Catholic, we had Protestants, we had Jewish person, an atheist, and us, Eastern Orthodox. So quite the diversity.
Yeah, because you guys had Joey, you had Jacob, Andrea came all the way down with her family from Canada, right?
And then Brian, who ran the Bible study server, came too.
Cool.
Yeah, no, that was a fun group. We had a few drinks before the evening as well. That could have gone till like early morning if we didn't stop it. But
Yeah, but we had to get married in the morning, so.
You got
Well, it's funny, I was telling the wedding coordinator who like ran the venue, she's kind of asking our story, and I was like, yeah, there's gonna be some people at the wedding we've never met in person, and she's like, she was just like, that's wild. So, yeah, but it was fun.
Yeah.
It was cool to see that and it all. I mean, it was just nice to have them there too, because it, I don't know, it just represented the thing that we came from. And like, I got to go to Shelly and Nathan's wedding. I was the only Discord person who went, who's able to go, and that was just sort of special, like to see that. And I got to be with Shelly the whole day and like help her, get ready. And there's something kind of, there's just something so beautiful about seeing that manifest in reality. It like, because what's happening online is real, but like you lose sight of it if you can't find a way to ground it. And that can be really like disorienting or overwhelming, and yeah, just finding at least to ground that. And I've been lucky enough to be able to ground that outside of the Discord, like take what I've learned from the Discord and have that manifest in my life with other people. But yeah, having it happen with people that I met online and marrying those two worlds, there's nothing like it.
Yeah, it adds another level. Ferdy, sorry, you were going to say something.
Yeah, well, it was also like with our families, right? They never met.
No.
So then it's like that's the first time we're really gonna meet, and you never like you assume it will be fine. At worst, it will probably like be a little bit offhanded to each other, but it will be decent enough. But that just like went great as well.
Gangbusters. Well, and his nephew came. He's 5, 6, and he only speaks Dutch. And my nieces, so I introduced them to my nieces, and like, well, who knows what's going to happen? But just like kids, they have their own language. They just played together and had the most fun, and they still talk about each other. Where it's like, oh, I miss Penny, I miss Colby. Where's Mason? Like that was just fun to see. I think especially for kids, because they just have such an innocence about them, and the way that they connect and the way that they like aim to help each other and like find joy in the world. I don't know.
We see that a bit more often here in Europe, because on some holidays you have all the families from all countries going to the beaches, and then you have all the children playing there in the sand and into the waters, and they will find each other, and they won't speak in words of the same language, but somehow they can communicate perfectly. And all the parents are looking at them and are like, well, I can't talk to you, so you say it your fan, I'm saying it my fan, we're good. Yeah. No, that was a good day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just I was thinking about the night before, where you guys were talking about how you got to meet up with some of the folks from the Discord that you had never met in person before. And yeah, from personal experience, that first meeting can go on for a long time if you don't have any limits the next day, because that's what happened when we did the fishing trip in Arkansas, where it was me, Sam, Jacob, and Charlie. And I was running late, and I got there at midnight. I got to the campsite, and we stayed up talking until 6 a.m.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would not have been conducive if someone in that party had to get married that next day.
I would have been very responsible. I would never stay up that late having conversations with people.
Right. Your cutoff time is 9 a.m, right?
Well, his friends have the joke that Ferdy is the guy that turns out the light. He's always the last person up to leave the party, so he's the one who turns out the light. So
it's just very difficult to get out of conversations and then be like, okay, I'm out.
Well, I have that same issue too, where I just love people. And so like, I can just go and talk, and it's hard for me to leave a conversation.
Even with Jeff last time, we probably talked 2 hours on the record, but we also had like
Yeah.
at least 2 hours afterwards.
You-
that
you-
we talked.
Right.
Well, that's the thing. You turn off the recording and the best things happen when the camera's not off. Like the most memorable things happen when the camera stops, which is probably the beauty of it. It's probably a good thing. But like so Andrea with the bangs, she came to Europe. What was it? A month and a half?
Yeah,
Before-
2 months before or so.
It felt like 2 weeks, but like a month and a half before we got married, and we spent a weekend with her and our, or like 2-3 days with her and her husband, showing them around the Netherlands. And it was like another one of those moments, and it was right before the German festival happened. So it was one of those moments where you kind of get this taste of the seeds that had been planted for years,
Mhm.
like the taste of like what it was, and like sitting and having a meal, and like sharing little moments, and sharing like cities. And then, you go and move into the German festival, and like what happened at the event. Like there was so much beauty to it. Like there was, I couldn't see it going better. And it's just like that spark, like, oh yeah, that's what we do. That's what we work towards, that we move towards. And then having that again at our wedding, so there's 3 different sort of modes of like grounding the thing that started in this other world that is the internet.
Mhm.
And it's like seeping out. I don't know.
Yeah, a lot of worlds came together in some ways on like a wedding day that have never collided before for most of them.
Well, and for me too, because it's like I had some of like Protestant people, I had some people from like my restaurant life, I had Discord people, I had, people I knew from filmmaking. And so it's all of these weird worlds like colliding in on each other. And yeah, it's sort of like, it's bizarre.
Well, it's especially bizarre because nobody was fighting the whole time. At least that I noticed.
There was some fighting. I learned about afterwards. There's some fighting.
It was subtle, hidden.
Yeah, but I don't know. There was a lot of joy for it though. Even in the midst of all the little quirky things that happen, and some people's hurt feelings, if you will, like there's still some joy of like, well, that's you. Yeah, I don't know. I just get some joy of the worlds colliding and things being unearthed and seeds being planted.
Well, I mean, I guess I don't have any other questions. I don't know if there's anything else that you guys want to share, or
Mr. Rogering us right now.
Yeah, trying to stay silent.
Right. Now I would have just sat there and stared at you if I was doing Mr. Rogers.
No, I mean, I think that's it. I mean, there's a million little details you can't even share, but I mean, that's the spark notes.
Mhm.
Well, there's so many little stories as well that you can't even all conjure anymore. Like it's like the conversations and the topics that has been on the Discord, right? That help you form in a way, and that allows us to talk about topics that we otherwise wouldn't have been able to talk about yet, or very immaturely. But then also maturing it together. It's like, those are like crucial things which happened over like all those years, all those days, all those little moments with people, which in some ways, like sometimes the smallest moments are the biggest. So, it's difficult to convey the story if you don't live the story yourself.
Yeah,
Like
it's impossible.
yeah.
Mhm.
Try your best.
Well, mystery caller.
My father.
What to the show?
His ears were burning. He's like, what are you telling about me on the internet?
You can dial him in if you want
Pick
to.
up, yeah, like Jeff probably had some questions for you there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to get his opinion on all of this.
I'll call him now.
Actually, that made me think of one more question, and then we can stop here because I know it's getting a little bit later for you guys, and you still need to eat. So could you even imagine? Because let me see, how can I phrase this question? So you guys have something that is very uncommon for most people on the Discord, right? Like I'm sure, I don't know what the mix is, but you know, there's a certain percentage of people in the Discord who are already married. There's a certain percentage of people in the Discord who are single. Most of the people that I know on the Discord that are married are not married to someone that they met on the Discord, right? The marriage happened before Discord, before, you know, their interests led them to the Discord, and these, you know, people that they met there who they can talk about things where it's just like, I don't know how to talk to other people about this kind of stuff. And they were able to find each other. Like, can you imagine being married to someone who doesn't know about all of that stuff?
I mean, I certainly can imagine it. I mean, I dated a few people like after I had found the Discord, but before I, you know, found Faraday. And yeah, I mean, it's not that they didn't like talking about certain topics, but yeah, there were certain parts where like, yeah, they got annoyed about the way I want to talk about things, or like how curious I was, and like not in a terrible way, but it was just like, yeah. And I mean, my previous fiance, the one I almost married, yeah, he like, that was sort of right when I started kind of getting really interested in topics that Discord people would like to talk about. And like, there was just a disconnect there. And it's not impossible, but like for myself, it was like realizing, oh, I do need someone who has that interest, that curiosity, who wants to like turn these questions around. And I don't know, I think for some people, like, oh, my friend's Christian. Do you remember Christian? We had a conversation with him. He got married to a woman. It was like not even a year ago, but he was talking to me about her. He's like, she doesn't like to talk about those things. Like, it's probably good for you that she doesn't like to talk about those things. Kind of like bring you down. So I think for some people it can be a real benefit that they don't have someone like wanting to be interested in these topics. And I think of someone like Luke Thompson. It seems like his wife is sort of grounded in a different interest, and so I think that can really help him in some ways. But I'm grateful to have that and not feel like that part of my life is cut off or something mysterious that he can't understand. I don't know, what do you think about it?
I could easily date somebody else, no problem.
So romantic.
I think one of the things, like, it's not so much the Discord itself. Like, it's the Discord was of course like a place that allowed a lot of the growth to come forth. But I think it's more the spirit of the Discord. But I've seen that spirit in many other places before as well, especially when traveling. Like, you would sit in the evening, you would sit down with each other, you had a beer, and you would just be talking to, like, sometimes even the early hours of the morning. And it's like, so there's something about the people you travel with. Like, first of all, you're going in and you're shedding the family, you're shedding the friends you have in a way. Like, you're leaving them behind, and you're always going to behave in a certain way with your friends and family. And it's nearly impossible to destroy that sort of way of manners you have. But then you start traveling and suddenly that's gone, because you don't get in that position. But that's also, the other person has the same thing. So suddenly you're both in this whole new place without all these ways of having to behave. Or like, it's not even like you have to behave, but you're sort of forced into it because you're used to it.
Or the things that you imagine people expect you to behave.
Yeah.
like the the expectations.
Yeah, so parts of the mask is being shed automatically when traveling, and
Mhm.
especially traveling for like a little bit longer at one spot. You get to meet people, and then both are like less personas with a mask on, and become more like real people that are like not really sure how their face look like.
Well,
I
there are.
think Discord is doing the same,
Mhm.
or at least from what I remember, what we had, like it used to do that. It's like allowing people to express themselves more honestly and inquiring in themselves more honestly, and then having people to receive that with like a kindness, but also, you know, a seriousness that they would also question you or like
Mhm.
push back or show themselves at least. And I think, you know, as long as you can find that in the person you know, you will spend the rest of your life with, you know, that's just a blessing.
Yeah.
So, you know,
What?
I wanted to make a comment. I will hold my joke there.
No, I want to hear it
All
now.
of the viewers are gonna be on the edge of their seats.
I just wanted to, you know, to advise them to be a bit more careful than I was.
Be careful on the Discord. You might end up with someone.
Yeah, no, it's a real issue. Very inconvenient.
But I think as long as you find somebody with that spirit, you get far. And like, you know, the person you're with or around, like friends, family, whatever, like they don't have to have all the facets anyway.
Yeah.
Like that's the nice thing. Like I know with some friends I would just drink a beer and we talk like, you know, fun stuff.
Yeah,
And then with others, you know, we will have conversations about I don't know what. Like, you know, and it's fine. There are all these little pockets with their own little things.
I think that our like mutual curiosity makes it easy for us because we don't always enjoy the same topics or find the same things interesting. Yet, like, and honestly, our content besides Paul doesn't overlap that much. You know, in the grander scheme of things. But there's that curiosity that I think keeps us moving towards that. And so there's that question of like, oh, why do you find that interesting? And that back and forth is super helpful for us. But I also think there are a lot of people who are built very differently. Like I look at my younger sister, I don't think she cares much about like theology and the religious questions, but she found a person that matches her that, you know, they work well together in their participation. And so like that curiosity that I find so fulfilling that Verity has, she probably doesn't need that as much in like her partner. And so it's not like a one size fits all sort of thing. I think there's a lot of people who probably, if they, you know, got in a Discord relationship, it would be a nightmare.
You have to, a key element is you have to have Sherry as your matchmaker. Don't do it without Sherry's
If
help.
Sherry doesn't approve, like it's a no-go.
Yeah.
She did pair up Shelly and Nathan, and then she gave us the blessing. She didn't have to do much matchmaking.
So this whole relationship is fake for just being like tuned for it.
Fake for being tuned for it.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Like when I'm just getting manipulated by Sherry.
By Sherry, yeah.
Well, Sherry did say, she would tell me all the time, Verity's a Christian, he just doesn't want to admit it. He's just not saying it. He doesn't know it yet. And I'm like,
So,
I think you're right, but I get what you're saying.
so those were really at that point where you told Verity that was just really Sherry's words coming
Oh
out
my
of
God.
Cassidy's
Sherry
mouth.
stepped in my mind.
Well, Luke would also say those things often.
Yeah, Luke said it to you. Yeah, he's a Christian.
Well, not just about me, but just in general. People are like, a lot of people are more Christian than, you know, or like a lot of people are like Christians, even though they don't claim it. A lot of people who say they are Christians, you might discuss that they might be not, but
Things are more complicated. I tried to kind of be like accepting and like understanding of like the labels in which people put on themselves. Because it's so irritating to say you're not really this when people say, well, It's like, I really get why people get annoyed by that, particularly atheists. I really get why they get annoyed when they're like, you're not really an atheist, you're a Christian.
You know, if you get defensive about that, you know that you not have like a good place where you are yet.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying it's a spiritually healthy response. I'm just saying I get it.
Like if somebody would say to me like, well, you're definitely not Christian, I'm like, well, then I could probably see why you think that.
Yeah.
Behaviors that are like, I should probably work on.
Yeah.
That way about you, Faraday, of, well, I could probably see why you think that, or I understand why, that I think that from what I heard earlier in the story is a big part of why you won over Cassidy's family. Cause it's just like, yeah, you're probably, I mean, you're absolutely right to be worried about these things, or I can see why you would think these things. It makes perfect sense. Yeah. For somebody to hear, their biggest concerns explained back to them of, yeah, it's reasonable. I get it. Tell me more. That's the easiest way to disarm someone.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, often the more people talk, the worse their arguments get. So.
Well, and that's the thing. He doesn't do that to like disarm people in a manipulative way of like,
Right.
oh, I really see what you mean by that. Like,
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He's just being him. He's just being himself. But it
Yes.
also happens to disarm people, right? It's
Yes.
not an intentional, okay, let me see how I can get this person to put down their weapons. It's just more of, no, I'm just going to be this way. And, oh, everyone around me is putting down their weapons. Okay, cool.
He
No,
means
that would be
it.
boring. It's like, fight, guys.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that was my last question. That was really good. Thank you both so much for entertaining my curiosity. Hopefully I'm not the only person out there that was curious about all of this. So if not, somebody will enjoy this conversation.
I'm not entertained.
Well, it's always fun for us to like recap those things because it's sometimes quite difficult to really recollect everything. So
It's fun, but it's also very stressful for me. I'm kind of a private person, particularly when it comes to like my personal life and my romantic entanglements. But there's something, I don't know.
There's
with
only
this-
one of those now, and hopefully
Yes.
that's all, at least for the next 30 years.
yeah. Well, and
rolling 30.
I had too many in my past anyway to remember them. So talk about that.
Well,
But
oh, sorry, go ahead.
there's something kind of beautiful about like owning it, and like I think for me, seeing how my past relationships and my past, whatever you want to call them, entanglements, things that didn't work out, or the things that I hoped that would work but didn't work, the things that I thought were supposed to be and weren't, they all taught me something very beautiful. And they, meeting Faraday, like it made sense of everything that came before. And so I'm so grateful for it now that it's like easier to talk about and I'm more willing to like share it. But it's, yeah, there's still sort of a weirdness, sort of like sharing my, personal life on the internet. It's weird.
Well, we are recording this, but we don't have to share it if you don't
No,
want
no,
to.
I'm happy to share it. I went into it knowing it was going to be public. So, and I've already talked about it in pieces here and there. So now it's the full dish.
All right, I got the exclusive. I feel so happy.
We have to. It's Randos United,
That's right. You named it. I stole it.
I may have named it, but you made it. So you deserve some credit. Like it caught on because of you.
Well, we'll see. We'll see how much longer this channel stays alive.
Has it been slowing down?
Yeah, I mean, there hasn't been a lot of content. One of the things that Jacob and I have talked about is using this for his project, his whole vision of a 24/7 TBN type YouTube channel where people can live broadcast their particular shows or whatever content that they have, and in the meantime we can play like back catalog of videos from various channels that are a part of this hub. And I have no idea how to make all of those things happen, but Jacob is working with people like Gavin and others behind the scenes to see if we can figure out how to do that. So whatever happens with the channel, I'm just kind of floating in the stream. Well, I'm taking a page from Farady's playbook.
Well, a lot of the BOM fathers have basically moved on in a way. So, like a lot of the old timers were also the ones that like probably kept coming for like making new videos together. So yeah, that's only like, you know, stops. I can see like why it slows down quickly.
Yeah, there is just recently, because Paul posted another link on one of his most recent videos, there's a new influx of people who have started hitting BOM. So if I had more time, you know, I'd be interested in getting to know those people and, you know, pulling them into conversations, and if they're willing to come on and share their stories, because I'm always interested in, you know, new stories and where people find themselves and what it is that brought them here and what kind of things they're struggling with, and, you know, what they're looking for. Those kind of things are always interesting to me.
Well, I do think those kind of conversations, that like person to go to have that initial introduction conversation, makes it so much easier to engage with others and like keep coming back to the Discord, because like I think it was easier when you had all the old randos and we got so excited about, oh, we saw it, like, because I saw your video and I saw Joe and I saw, you know, Julian and all these people conversations, and so you see them, you're like, oh, and you get to like have these conversations, but we've lost some of that. It's funny, I remember when I first started coming to the Discord, I would go into a room sometimes and people would be like, are you the Cassidy? And I'm like, no. Like, please, this is so weird. And then the other day I posted something about like a live stream to promote the live events. I was doing something with Catherine, and somebody responded, excuse me, who are you?
That's better. Those are the responses we actually want.
It hurt my ego, but also made me comfortable all at the same time. But there's something about that familiarity of like knowing, you know, knowing the pool of people that have come before, that's missing a little bit. So having those introductions, I think, is super helpful, because it's not like I have to go into a room full of strangers. It's like, well, I've talked to Jeff,
Yes.
or I talked to, you know, Faraday or whoever, and they're there. Oh, I want to talk to them. I mean, that's why we talked. I went in because I wanted to talk to Ginger Bill.
Yeah.
And then here we are.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so happy.
Yeah, I think it really is a helpful dynamic for people to, you know, there's all this talk. I don't know if you guys have been paying much attention about how do you onboard into, like, I probably shouldn't say this. I'll probably make a lot of enemies. That's what I'm known for.
Yeah,
Like I'm not upset with anyone for this. There's just like a certain cringe factor to this little corner term for me. I don't know why. It might just be me. I don't like that. For some reason, I don't like that term. I don't get it. I don't get why I don't like the term. It's not that I don't get the term. I understand it, and I use it too. But there's just part of me. It's like, I feel weird. But there's been, you know, talk about how do people get onboarded into this, and to a certain extent, what I'm about to say, it won't help with that at all. But one of the avenues that I think did help with people connecting with each other is exactly the dynamic that we just talked about. Is, oh, I watched someone have a conversation with Paul, and now that person is on the Discord, and I can actually have a conversation with that person. I saw a video. I already feel like I know this person to a certain extent, so I feel more comfortable actually going up to them and talking to them now, versus like if you think about Cassidy, a bunch of the different like church environments that we've been into, like the Bible studies or singles groups or things like that, it's just like you walk into a room and the only thing that some of the people, a certain percentage of those people, have in common is, oh, we've watched the same person talk on stage or play music on stage, but we've never interacted with each other, right? Or sometimes, if you're lucky, there's a person who is in that particular social setting who you have actually seen on a Sunday morning go up there and maybe tell their story or have a conversation with someone, or maybe there was something about them that was brought into the service where you knew a little bit more about them, so you felt a little bit more comfortable. There might have been something that you saw or you heard them say on that platform that made you be like, oh, that might be a connecting point, or that's something that I'm curious about. I want to go learn more, or ask them what they think about this, you know? And without that, and that's what I feel like, these recorded conversations allow people who otherwise wouldn't feel like they would have a point of entry, actually might have one when they see somebody talking and they're like, oh, now I know a part of that person's story. I can either, if I'm lucky, get to talk to that person, or I can talk to other people who watched that conversation, and I can say, here's what I picked out of that conversation. What does everybody else think about this? And that's at least an opportunity, for people to engage, where otherwise they might just get on there and feel like, oh, I don't feel like I have any connection points with anyone here. I don't know what to do,
Well, there was like this network of people where it's like, not everybody who would talk or say a conversation hit your sort of conversation bubble or your niche or whatever. But there'd be enough people where somebody would say something that would connect, and
there's something that got my attention somewhere in that network. Yeah.
There was this like dance that was happening of all of these different people who had, as Paul calls them, their little hobby horses, things like
Right.
that, and found this like crossover between them and this like back and forth. And I mean, I can make friends anywhere. So for me, it's hard to say, well, what made it easier for me to kind of like go and talk to strangers on the internet? Well, I talk to strangers every day. But like there was something about, because Joe actually gave me the link to the Discord. And at first I kind of was like, all these text channels, I just wasn't about it. But one day I just jumped into a voice chat and just listened. And there was amazing conversation happening in the spirit that was so hard to come by, particularly when you're talking about sort of big questions, issues or whatever. And it was like, that was intoxicating. And then the way in which, I jump in again, and then there's this conversation happening where someone's talking about things that are happening in their life, distress, whatever. And like the way that people came around that and like harness that, I was like, what is happening? This is on the internet. I can't say I know exactly what's going on the Discord right now, because I've purposely sort of been stepping away from it to try to get clarity. And with some of the work that I do with trying to make opportunities where people can come and meet in person, it's sort of healthy for me to get a little bit of space from it. But I just would love to continue seeing Bridges of Meaning being that place where you have surprisingly intriguing conversation that sparks your curiosity, that moves you towards something, that doesn't make you pick up your weapons, but kind of gets your maps out and rearranges the way that we look at the journey. And we eventually find people to walk along with us in that journey. And I don't know. I think whatever happens with Bridges of Meaning and this little corner, there's enough seeds being planted that have grown into something beautiful, that have created fruit, that have started little gardens, that I'm not worried about it. And so, I wish people luck with their projects and what happens. And I think good has already come from it. Definitely more good than harm.
Verdi, you got any final words before we shut it down?
No, not really. I think a lot has been said. Like, I haven't been on the Discord for a long time, so I don't really have like much to say about that. I just hope like there's still people like sometimes drunks sitting in a video chat, together. Like, what more do you need? That's the starting point for every sort of relationship that can build up. No, nothing to add.
All right. I think that's a good place to end it. Thank you guys for agreeing to this, and thanks for whoever's watching. Hope you enjoyed.